Good afternoon, everybody. I'm meteorologist Tim Pandajis with your Atlantic Tropical Update. Today is Wednesday, September 15th, 2021, and we're tracking the depression that is now Nicholas, and we've also got Invest 95L and 96L that are actually in a competition for who gets named first. Here's a look at Depression Nicholas, a shell of what it was. It made landfall as a Category 1 hurricane about a day and a half ago, and now it hasn't really moved very far, sitting over central southern Louisiana as a depression, only moving at 5 miles an hour. The last advisory was issued by the National Hurricane Center today at 10, which is why you see that as the last advisory number there. Not a whole lot of rainfall associated with it at its center. That's all displaced well off to the east in Alabama and Mississippi. But Nicholas was the 8th named storm to make landfall in the United States so far in 2021. Now, when you add in last year that had a record 11 named storms make landfall, that means there's been 19 landfalls in the United States in the last 2 years. And we still have a good amount to go in this season. Now, when you look at it more specifically for the Gulf Coast, in the last 2 years, there's been 14 landfalls. 8 of those have been landfalls by hurricanes. And most recently, Ida was a Category 4, and then Laura last year was a Category 4 as well. So it's been very, very active, to say the least. So here's our storm tally up until today, September 15th. 2021, we've seen 14 named storms. 6 of them been hurricanes, half major hurricanes, Category 3 or higher. Last year at this time, we had 1 name left on the list. We were at Vicky, and we had Wilfred left to go. As you know, we cleared that list and went well into the Greek alphabet for only the second time, and will be the last time because we no longer use the Greek alphabet. Hurricanes, were up to 8. 2 of them were major, and then you go back in 2019, much less, and then 2017 was another very active year with 12 named storms up through now. 6 hurricanes, half were major. All right, here's what's going on in the basin now. We're just about a week off of the peak of the season, and really the whole second half of September you can consider peak season because overall the climatology, the environmental conditions remain conducive. It's not just one day that's most active, it's a couple weeks worth. So we've got 2 tropical waves out there that have a high chance of developing, and they've been tagged as invests or investigative areas, and we rotate from 90 to 99. We just cycle through it, and we're at 95 and 96. One more tropical wave that's coming off the coast of Africa, very low chances of that one developing. 0% in the next 2 days, 20% over the next 5. Now these two, Invest 95 and 96, are going to be competing for which one gets the names first. And the next 2 names are Odette and Peter, number 15 and number 16, and they start off our third column of names here before we wrap up the names by the end of the season. Hopefully we don't get that far, though. All right, here's a look at Invest 96L. This one's the closest to the United States, well off the southeast coast of the U.S., moving to the north-northwest at 14. We just got an update at 1 p.m. Not much change here. Pressure is pretty high, 10 millibars, and it's got winds in some of the convection, some of the thunderstorm activity that could be reaching up to 35 miles per hour. Now remember, to be a tropical storm, you need 39 miles per hour or greater, so it's not that far off. And within the next 2 days and within the next 5 days, it's got 70% chance. So high possibility this becomes a named system. And as we look at it on infrared satellite, it's in a very long, elongated system here, tropical wave with thunderstorms flaring on up mainly on the eastern side of where the models are thinking that center of circulation could possibly be at some point in time. So overall, it's just a disorganized area of showers and thunderstorms. But if you look closely, especially on the visible satellite, you can certainly see some spins out there, and most obvious is this one right here. It looks like it's undergoing a little bit of some wind shear, so you can see almost that low-level center being exposed and most of the convection here on the eastern side. But to get a better look at it, the Hurricane Hunter aircraft is actually en route, took off from Biloxi, and is headed towards the system. And we'll be getting there probably within the next hour or two, doing some flights and some observations and seeing if we can get any sort of feel for if it's beginning to organize or we got a center of circulation or something like that. But anyways, the models are seeing this moving north Some models much farther to the west, possibly within range of the Outer Banks of North Carolina, some safely offshore. Nonetheless, the entire eastern seaboard should keep an eye on this one. It's got plenty of warm waters to work with in this area, and especially if it makes its way farther to the north, it's got the deeper, warmer waters of the Gulf Stream coming up from the south, and that could provide a little jolt of energy for it to maybe strengthen and organize a little bit more. And as we've seen time and again, as storms get closer to the coastline, they seem to want to intensify. We just saw that with Nicholas. That was a tropical storm, and then just right before landfall, it became a Category 1 hurricane. So how did the global model see things? GFS has been very good so far this year, but you see them compared here with the European. GFS is in yellow, Europeans in red. Both sort of already show a closed low, so that's kind of interesting there right off the bat. And then as we get towards the end part of the week, early Friday morning, GFS has this developing into a named system, potentially Odette, if 95 doesn't do it first. And right off the coast within 100 miles of Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, along the Outer Banks there. Then moving north, at least these models, this run shows it missing New England and the Northeast, which is great. But by this point in time, it's a very large system as it gains latitude. It spreads out and pretty intense as well. Both models, the Euro and the GFS, show that, and then shooting off into the North Atlantic, possibly somewhere near Newfoundland, just like they had to deal with Larry just about a week ago. And then we've got 95L. Now, any storms or any clusters of thunderstorms that develop or become a tropical wave and come off the coast of Africa and then move into the main development region, this time of year need to be watched extremely closely, because this is what is climatologically favored to kind of be the birthplace of a lot of these storms. The environment is so fertile for these seeds to come off the African coast and then really germinate quickly and intensify and grow. And this wave here right now, 95, looks pretty put together. It's got an 80% chance in the next 2 days, 90% chance within the next 5. So as it moves off to the west at a pretty good clip at 17 miles an hour, pretty good odds that this one also becomes a named storm. And it's even more evident on visible satellite that you can see that broad spin. It's almost like a snowball bumbling on through and tumbling off towards the west. And it's moving into a relatively conducive environment as well for development. Here's how the models see things. We're not getting a ton of models locking onto this just yet. Most keep it moving due west, and that's because ridging building to the north. Typical this time of the year. How strong that ridging is, how expansive it is off to the west, will determine how long this travels westwards for before it starts to take that turn to the north-northeast, north-northwest, as some of these models are showing. Some depict a stronger ridge, meaning a longer-term track to the west, potentially putting in the Leeward and Windward Islands, maybe off into Puerto Rico and Hispaniola by the time we get towards early to middle of next week. So there's a lot of time to watch this one. Let's again put it to the global models, the GFS and the European. Right now, not much going on, and really through the rest of the week, not showing much development. GFS starts to show the possibility of a closed low there by early Friday morning, going well through the weekend. Here we are Saturday morning. GFS still on the things. Notice Europeans kind of saying, I don't think this is going to develop. GFS thinks otherwise. By the time we get to Monday morning, here it is just to the east of the northern Leeward Islands. Pretty impressive storm at that point. The isobars are tightly packed, and that means the pressure's tight pressure gradient, stronger winds, passes to the northeast of Puerto Rico by the middle of next week, and on from there, it could take that turn out to sea. So my final thoughts here. We'll likely have at least one additional named storm before the weekend. East Coast should certainly monitor the forecast for Invest 96L. Could be a close call. At minimum, we're going to see rough surf along the Outer Banks and possibility of coastal erosion, depending on how strong it gets. And if it comes certainly much closer, it'll impact land and cause much bigger issues. Now, the strength and the positioning of the ridging, as I talked about in regards to 95L, will determine if it's a viable threat to any land masses as we go forward. As I mentioned, the stronger it is, the more expansive it is, and if it's farther to the west, it'll push storms farther to the west and potentially impact land. So that's the latest there. My final thoughts. Until next time, if you have any questions, you can find us all on social media, on Twitter, Instagram, and on Facebook. Chief Meteorologist David Paul is up this evening for any other updates in terms of 95 or 96, and also with the update from if the Hurricane Hunter aircraft finds anything with 96L sitting off the southeast coast.